Hello everyone, Carl here from selfsufficienthub.com, and today we're going to be talking about chicken maths. Now, if you are a smallholder or a homesteader or someone who is in the world that I live in where you and a lot of the people you know keep chickens, then you'll already know about chicken maths and how it works. But if you're not, then don't worry, I'm going to show you today. So we started off with just a couple of peakins, which are these little bantams. They don't need much room. In our old house where we used to live, we could have 3 or 4 of these guys in the back garden, and we'd get the odd egg every now and again. They're not the most prolific egg layers, but they're quite cute, and they're one of my wife's favourites. They're really friendly, they make great pets. Another reason Pekings are a great chicken is because they go broody. They sit on eggs and raise chicks really well. So obviously if you start off with a couple of Pekins and you let Mother Nature do its thing, then they're going to turn these into a few more. And then over time what you find is, obviously, you end up with all of your male birds being related. So you need to basically change your male birds and get a new one. My wife isn't terribly worried about the pure breeding, so she's got this, I forget what it's called, but this guy here, because she loves the idea of unusual looking chickens. So like I say, we start off with a couple of bantams, and because of the nature of the Pekins, they will sit and breed, and then because we needed to change, the bloodlines and what have you, and change the genetics, we got Bob, who you're looking at there. And just behind Bob, you'll see we just happened to come across an advert in a farm shop. So the advert in the farm shop said Pekins for sale, mum with 4 chicks, I think, for £10. Now, because we have bought and sold chickens for a little while, we knew that was just an incredibly cheap offer. So we thought, well, we'll buy them, even if we just put them in the next poultry sale that we go to. We'll buy them, we can't really say no. So, we started off with 2 hens and 1 cockbird at our last house. And before you know it, we're up to probably 15 or so in these Pekins, because of course we only put 2 in the sale, which more than covered the cost, but it meant that we kept an additional 3 birds. And with the ones that we'd bred, then like I say, we're up to about 15. You see this girl here? Now she is an ex-battery hen, so she has had quite a hard life. She's lived in an intensive farming system, and they get disposed of quite young when they're just 13 or 14 months old. Now, we rescued her along with some of her friends, probably about 5, because the thing is, if you're going to keep ornamental breeds like the ones we started with, the bantams, they're not particularly productive. They are an ornamental breed, and they're lovely. They make lovely pets, and they make lovely mums because they go broody quite a lot. But all these characteristics are things that make them not really suitable for production, for egg production. These guys are the ones that are used. Now, of course, along with our couple of bantams that we started with, we used to get a handful, maybe 3, maybe 5 at the most, ex-battery hens that we would have as well, who would just deliver us lots and lots of nice eggs in partnership with having a lovely retirement. Because even though they're of no use to a commercial operation anymore, they're still actually quite productive birds, and they are certainly far more productive than the Pekins that we had. So we might have anything between 5 and 7 birds at a time. We have our Pekins, which are sort of pets, and then we'd have a few battery hens. And then, of course, what happened was we had this space. So we had all this space, which my wife and I refer to as Poultry Paradise. That's what we actually call this garden. This garden is Poultry Paradise. It's the first garden we named after we moved in, because it's where the chickens were going to live. And of course, you've already seen that some of our chickens no longer live here. They've colonised the garden outside the kitchen. As the battery hens that we brought here, the 5 that we brought here, slowly died off, then we replaced them. And of course, if you've got the extra space, you don't replace 3 birds with 3 birds. You replace 3 birds with maybe 20 birds. Yeah, that sounds right. I think these little guys were bred from eggs that my wife got from her father-in-law. No idea how or why. That's all I've got to say about that. Now, the observant among you will have noticed that there's only one battery hen in here now, because we actually moved them elsewhere because my wife developed a penchant for a different breed, these Brahmas, which are a really big bird. Now, these are again similar to our Pekin flock in that, apart from this one battery hen who's in here because she's a little bit poorly, you've probably noticed she's got a bit of a limp, so she wouldn't do very well with the younger birds, but the rest are all Brahmas. They're not a particularly good egg laying breed, but they're more pets that my wife likes. They do deliver us some eggs, but they're really big birds, so they do make table birds as well. So you'll notice in here we've got probably 1 cock. We've got quite a few younger ones that are still growing that my wife has bred, because if you've got ornamental chickens, then you will probably choose to breed them because they just breed on their own. You know, I don't know why we're breeding them. Anyway, so the males that come up here will be for the table, and the females will be more not really laying birds for the flock. Okay, so you heard me talk about Poultry Paradise being where we put our battery hens when we first moved here, and obviously they're not there now, and that's because they went up here. We've got this lovely big space within our wood, and we've fenced it off beautifully. The ground's a bit bare at the moment. They're due to have a change of scenery and move, but they've got 3 or 4 lovely big houses in here, and it's all completely fox proof. And in the summer it means they've got plenty of shade as well. So we moved our small flock of maybe 10 or 15 battery hens up in here, and of course they didn't really fill the space. One of the other things that happened throughout this whole process is we started selling eggs at the side of the road, and of course the sale of the eggs was actually paying for the feed of the chickens and all the other associated costs, including rescuing the battery hens. So it just made sense at that point to get an additional 15 birds so that we could have 30 in this space to keep up with demand for the eggs at the side of the road. So it just made sense, really. You know, at this point, it just makes sense. You just get more. You need more birds. You just need more chickens. So with that many battery hens, or ex-battery hens, an odd thing kind of happened. We were actually producing almost 20 eggs a day. And when you're producing that many eggs, you're able to put eggs out every morning at the side of the road, which is brilliant, because up until that point we were eating some of the eggs and then selling some of the eggs, and then some days we might have 2 boxes of 6 to put out, and some days we might have less. So it just meant we were putting boxes out all the time, which was great. But a byproduct of that, which is another positive, is that we were getting more and more customers. So even though we were producing more eggs, it meant that we still weren't keeping up with demand. So of course the only sensible thing to do was to get another 30 laying birds, which are here. Another 30. I can't remember exactly what that number would be now, but obviously that's all part of the maths. Just one last point to bear in mind as well, if you're getting chickens, is that at some point someone's going to say, oh, I've got these birds that need rehoming, and I'm not sure what to do with them. So you're definitely going to end up with those as well. These guys here only arrived yesterday, and these are a Cornish cross table bird. Now, we didn't actually have a dedicated table flock. So what we're going to do is we're going to breed these guys, and we're going to incubate the eggs and raise them as table birds. So there's 2 there, but ultimately I'd like to think that we're going to get quite a few more out of them. So that'll be +2 plus quite a few more. That's kind of how the maths work. I hope that all makes sense to you. Basically, 9 times out of 10, if you're doing some chicken maths, you would start with a number that's quite low, like 2 or 3. And generally speaking, you'd start with 2 or 3, and then you'd add a similar number. And then at some point, I mean, you're always just adding numbers, different numbers. Sometimes you're multiplying, but it's always either multiplying or addition. Now, occasionally there's a subtraction, because you might lose some to a pest or to an illness or end of life. But what you need to remember, the ultimate thing to remember, is whenever there's a subtraction, that would always be followed by an addition where the number is higher than the subtraction. It's really quite simple once you understand those basic principles. So I hope you enjoyed that video. And as always, if you find these videos valuable, please do subscribe to our channel, leave a comment down below, press that like button. You can hit that right now, cost you nothing. And you can also find our podcasts. Self-Sufficient Hub is the name of the podcast, on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. And you can come and find us on Facebook as well, where we are Self-Sufficient Hub. Just come check us out. See you on the next one. So was that 20 plus 5? It's not always as simple as you think. So we've got about 16 eggs in an incubator right now, but the plan is to sell those. Realistically, we're probably going to sell 10. So do I count that as a +6? Because we might not sell any. Or we might sell 6 and then buy 4 with the money. It's difficult sometimes to keep track.